to whom I come from. The reason that I'm on this conversation, on this call with you, the reason I'm activated to talk about energy is because of my ancestors. And so I just want to take this moment right now. I would normally have some libations if we sitting around the fire. And I poured my libations earlier today, but I want to just take this moment for us to do, as we say, a virtual libation of bringing all of our ancestors into this space who I feel will guide this conversation, or as we call in this, a fireside chat. And I just want to open up with bringing my grandmother, Willie Lee, who first gave me the chance to learn what soil work was, though I was running from it. And so I'm just grateful for her, Willie Lee Bennett, a descendant of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And so I'm just bringing her into this space right now and asking her for guidance. For folks who are joining, we're grounding ourselves as is always needed in the ancestors who have allowed us to just jump in and have this conversation today. This chat, it ain't over scripted. I didn't sit, no one has an agenda. So I'm so grateful that folks are joining to reclaim power. I welcome you in the chat to add your ancestors that you like to drop into this space with us virtually as we begin to really have this chat about reclaiming our power as a cooperative group of folks. It's so very important. As often when we think about that word power, so very individualistic. And here we are now creating a collective consciousness container. So it's so very important for us to bring those ancestors in that can help exude as we understand that we're in this time of restoration and activation at the same time as we are reclaiming our power. So I just invite folks. I brought in my grandmother and now my grandfather, I will bring into the room, Onan Swan, who also gave me the touch of the soil. I bring him into here. Not because the person who's sitting right here next to me always is Harriet Tubman, free or die. I bring her as we talk about reclamation into this space and ask for the guidance in this space. So really kind of paying attention to time. If anybody is saying, I need to speak their name, Brandi, you saying write it in the chat, and all the folks ain't trying to write stuff. If you feeling like I need to call an ancestor in this chat, please, if there's availability to unmute. I'm not the tech savvy person, but I'd like if folks feel that there's a verbal call out that needs to happen. Can we offer that, please? Good, I see stuff's in the chat. Thanks, Sherry, from our maternal grandmother. I'm calling them out too. I guess there's this thing where everything is muted. Is anybody gonna? I see Hannah Marie jumping in.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Brandi. It's Lauren.
Hey. Hi, Sonia.
Hey.
I'd like to call in Grandma Stella and Betty.
I would like to call in Rosemary, my mom.
Yes. Give thanks.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Mama B, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'd like to call in Papa Theodore Johnson.
Yes. Yes. Give thanks. Give thanks.
Thanks. Thank you for being here.
Give thanks, Kanita is jumping in. Charlene Thomas, give thanks, Kanita. I see in this chat here, my grandpa Frank. Y'all are reading in this chat, Susan, both sets of grandparents, my parents and all the generations before them in Korean lineage, Ashe. I say Ashe and give thanks and just in grounding and knowing that this is so it is. When we say Ashe, that means so be it. That means come on, make it happen. It ain't just no passive, oh, So now we done made it happen and opened up this container. And as they come, you can continue. I won't stop if your ancestors say, nope, so-and-so need to jump in this conversation, because we are all connected. We are here because of our ancestors and plant testers. I don't want to leave out the plant testers for us understanding the divine connection to our plants. For some of y'all know me, and I could go on a tangent about mycelium, but I won't do that. This is not that conversation, but it's very much about connection today. And the whole reason for this conversation, as Crystal, myself, and several folks on this call continue to advocate for this thing called Power Solar Cooperative, I said to Crystal, I said, we need to just have a conversation about energy. I said, I think we're so detached and we push in movements. And I said, how are we using our energy? Where is our energy coming from? What's the history indigenously energy? Because as we begin to organize, and I have to remember to acknowledge this, I want to give thanks. This conversation as it prefaces about PG&E, and we went back and forth with that this is an and conversation, A-N-D. This isn't one of those, we're gonna take that, like, no. Systems are crushing because that's what they are doing anyway, naturally. We ain't even gotta get in the way of that. So this isn't that conversation. This is one of those cooperative, that's why I bring in this mycelium thing again, conversations where we're chatting about our energy, right? And wherever you are in that conversation, this isn't a sign up today to be a part of Power Solar Cooperative. This is what you're doing. I know I sent this message out. This ain't one of those. I really said to Crystal, I said, I think that we are so used to passing and putting movements, and we're so used to flipping on the light. We're so used to calling when the power is off. We're used to running for water when the fire is here. And I wonder where we are in our individual selves around power so that we can then better get together and cooperate and think about this idea of cooperative ownership and power and energy. That it's not a separate thing from us, right? Like, you are energy. And so that I want to just ground this conversation. I also want to say that I'm one of those folks that normally, I think some people who are on this call would probably be out picking up trash or doing some service work in the community. And some folks that know me, I said, well, Martin Luther King did so much work. I said, in his day, what if we did some other reclamation work, especially for those of us that pick up trash every day and know that's just work you're supposed to do. It doesn't require a holiday or anything. It's just what you're supposed to do on the planet as a steward. That what if also we began having these other conversations and other ways to rest radically in honor of the king? What would that look like? And that what if all the other days we lived out this idea certain time, just as a part of your fabric? And in fact, in his honor, because the man practiced what we call nonviolent communication, I just want to bring him into the space, as we call our ancestors, that had to be trained in this nonviolent communication. Like, you had to be trained to know how to sit and be spit on and be available to communicate. That's some energy. That's some connection. So I just want to open up, like I said, I don't have a humongous, but I had to share those things. And here's what also came up when I thought about, in honor of someone who practiced this mindfulness, nonviolent communication, his energy, how much energy it required to do that. We talk about reclaiming our energy. And right now we're saying PG&E, but I want to just even move that out of the way because that's stagnant, because there's folks on this call from everywhere working with all kind of different energy systems and different designs, and move it back really into our relationship to it. How many folks on this call can say you've looked at your PG&E bill and saw the kilowatts or even understand what it is? Just want to bring it back down to that. Do you hear these conversations on the call where they say the peak hours are this? Do you know what that is? I want to just bring it, this relationship, and individualistically as we think about creating cooperatively. I'm just asking a question I ask myself too. I'm not trying to be like, tell me now, everybody know. I'm saying this because I'm thinking about this as I reclaim or claim, I've been given this title as a president of this cooperative. What's your relationship to energy, Brandi? How do you use energy? How are you wanting to really exude for your children and the next generation? Why are you a part of this idea of cooperative ownership of energy? What is this? So it started there with my own question about my relationship to energy. And then, of course, for me, then the bigger piece was thinking about the next generation. And what came up for me was, well, the way we're operating it now, will there be a next generation? There was where my relationship, as I began to cultivate what this conversation and the question I want to chat with some of my amazing thought leaders on this call about, like, as we think about like, what does that look like when we think about generative energy outside of this squares or however you're seeing this? I wonder if we can get Zoom to create circles. I'm just saying, anybody that knows me knows it's all about the circles. I'm not gonna go there, but we're on a square. Maybe I have to have I'm not gonna go there. Okay. Possibly we could get some circles. It'd be a whole nother thing, right? I'm saying that because that's where this conversation of reclaiming our power, and when I thought about the king and the nonviolent communication and what that required to shift a movement, and the work that we're doing here in our cooperative to think about shifting a consciousness around energy, around where it comes from, how we use it, even the ownership. That word is kind of sometimes triggering, I have to tell you. I was thinking, because we also know, and please forgive me, because I didn't also just give thanks for the occupied land that I'm on. I just went jumping in. I was thinking about protecting time, but please forgive me. I want to just acknowledge the occupied land that I'm on, the Miwok territory in Tuolumne County, California. We're all on occupied land if you're in this country, in America. So I just want to acknowledge that. With the bodies of stolen people that built the economy. Oh, it's deep. We ain't gonna go there. When we talk about the energy, what built up this piece. And so I just really want to chat. I ain't trying to have no mountaintop conversation. I really just want to talk with all of the folks here that I feel like we're having this conversation around our power. We can talk later about, some folks, I shared this with maybe having people power. So I want you to go look up and see all the stuff we didn't create. That's some beautiful stuff. This is just a conversation really about what does it mean to reclaim our individual, for me. And I open up this conversation to converse, to bring what I'm calling radical rest conversation. And the acronym for rest, let me tell you, this came earlier. I had to even write it down. I was like, whoa, universe, this is big. And rest is meaning this in the conversation: remembering our eternal spiritual ties. Rest. Soul connections. Because okay, Lauren, you saw, that's where it was like, that's where the whole piece was here. And what I'm saying with this is all of us here remembering our eternal spiritual ties, that we're all connected. I just want to say that as we talk about this energy. That if someone down the street from you has no power, you have no power. I shared a podcast, and I don't know if you can share Crystal Piper's podcast about the water wars that's going on in Detroit. And I have to, Piper has been just like, as so many folks, as we begin to expose, and here's the thing, the planet is doing what it do. She do what she do. The humans better jump on board. This is the thing. That's the reclamation right now. How shall we jump in? What kind of participant? Spectator or participant? So Crystal, we got folks in the chat. That'd be all too much for me, but I want to open up a conversation. I don't want to, someone said preach, so I ain't trying to preach to nobody. I want to conversate because I have these questions. I wonder, because as we talk about, and let me say this last thing, some folks know I've been talking about People Power Solar Cooperative, and they're like, Brandi, what is that? It seems so big, and y'all, we need to own our power. Like, you know, when PG&E shuts off, how do we begin to own our power? Like, why are we saying them? What, you know, that's a very essential need as we talk about essential workers and essential, right? That word has come up now, right? On the planet, way more than you've ever heard it. Outside of essential oils. Well, you know, right? It's been essential. Everyone's essential. And power, I mean, when you think about energy, it's been such a brand new secondhand bag almost. That's been our relationship with it, right? As if though, like, I thought about that even as we have this conversation, which is why I kept saying this is an and, this ain't no take down PG&E, because guess what, y'all? We on PG&E right now. I'm on the Zoom with y'all with PG&E. Ashe PG&E. So it's not that. So we got to go deeper. Give thanks, Rashid. You saying okay? So I want to just kind of open up, and Crystal, who has really held a container, and Ashe for you in this space, in the midst of us living life, to even have the container.
Well, yeah, you know, I want to find out, do you live here? Right?
Go ahead, Rashid. You're unmuted.
Rashid?
Oh yeah. Hey. I didn't know I was gonna get in on this conversation, but I appreciate it. Is there should I ask a question or should I just make a comment?
Whatever you feel. This definitely isn't one of those like over design. We just having a chat. We want us to pretend like we had a fire somewhere, y'all. And hopefully in your spirit to begin to change some stuff.
Yes. Well, I'm out at the African American Farmers California demonstration site right now. I'm pulling, getting fields ready for plowing. So where is the agricultural power? You know, and the power in agriculture? That would be my question and prompt. You know, all of these tractors, all of this machinery, the mechanization of agriculture with laser leveling and you know, wanting to get robots out into these fields. What powers is driving that, you know, in terms of decision making and bottom line oriented thinking that's not triple bottom lined, which it should be. It shouldn't just be about profit. And so that's what I am thinking about when I think about power, and when I'm standing out here and looking at these fields and the future of these fields and the future of our people, our Black and brown people in this work as we build a new generation of farmers, of Black and brown farmers out here in California.
Give thanks, brother. I appreciate you out there doing that good work, putting in that good service. Those weeds ain't no little weeds. If anybody knows the site that I think he's at is down in Fresno, California. It's the African American Farmers Demonstration Site, founded over 20 years ago by Brother Will Scott. And it's operating there as a site to really show what can happen when we get together and grow together and reclaim land. What does that look like, and the energy it requires just to do that? So Rashid, you know, we having that conversation. You said, where's the power? So, you know, again, this is a chat. So this ain't the Mama B show. I'm just holding a platform. So I do want to invite any person, somebody has an expertise of the conversation that he just brought up around agricultural power. What does that look like? Are we thinking of will we be replaced That's the, I don't even look at those sites, Rashid. I see some of this stuff coming up, like these many, all of this, like, I'm like, I don't know if I want that to be in the field with my food. And then, like, what's is that supposed to be here?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Hi,
Yes.
it's Red. Red
Hey,
here.
Red.
Hi, the people. So whenever I think of like tech, this actually came up in another conversation just recently, the last Zoom I was on, about tech versus nature. And there's a area right in between where humans integrate to some degree. Like I can imagine myself like flying a drone in the future to go harvest my crop, but I'm like, I can imagine myself sitting on that drone and like flying my own self around and just like hover right over if I ever be like, get to the point where I'm not able to physically walk out there and do that. So like other able people, I can imagine tech being a really big way to bring them out, bring us, everyone out into the fields, keep us out in our own gardens and interacting with them. Also, I was gonna say a little, I lost my thought, but I guess that was it for now. I'll keep chiming in. I'm really excited to like, let me see if I can shine a light on this little like project I have going on the ground right there next to me in my trailer. I don't know if y'all can see that. I can zoom in later. It's like a solar inverter and some batteries, and I've been really inspired lately to actually for us, like through solar and through other ways. But yeah, I'm gonna go back on mute mode for a minute.
Thank you, Red. I don't want to negate the conversation because you got a flyer that Crystal put together, and there's someone else who has been having this conversation, doing this work, that I would just really like to invite into the space and give thanks, Al. I know you've just been like probably noting and doing all the goodness, but I just want to invite you into the space and give thanks for this conversation that we're having together, and bring some other perspectives into the space.
Well, thanks, Brandi, and thanks for all the folks chiming in on Martin Luther King Day. It is to pull together a couple threads here. I mean, it is really important to recognize that Martin Luther King was really all about power, especially power for people of color, Black people. Long historical tradition and what power to the people meant, in the context of civil and human rights and that struggle. So that's when we talk about power to the people, we're definitely talking about that power. That power to determine our destiny, and especially, for people of color to be leading and saying today what that means and what we need to do and where we need to go. And of course, the shit that's happening in Washington, D.C. really, talks about the fact that there's no easy path here. You got very consolidated right-wing white supremacy movement, on the move, and their allies. So we're really talking about political power on Martin Luther King Day for sure, no question about it. But I come into this picture because there's the more technical way to think about power, which is energy and power in the physical sense, electrical power and the power to be able to do things, to create things, to build things, to move things, to, whether they be artistic or production or farming or manufacturing or whatever it is that we have to do, getting around. That's really physical power, and it's the power that really, it comes to us, from the sun. Ultimately, it's it's energy, the energy to be able to harness that energy in different ways in order to be able to do the things that we need to do, and to be able to do that in total harmony with the earth, with the natural surroundings that we're in. As opposed to in a way that destroys the earth and the surroundings that we're in. And so, what we've seen historically is the use, the storing up of the sun's power into fossil fuels over millennia and millennia. And then with the advent of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution, to be able to take that fossil fuel stored power, to burn it, to make engines, to build all this machinery, all this technology that people are talking about, and now recognizing that that's been at great cost to our planet, at great cost to the earth, at great cost to our very notion of survival and our ability to survive, and the jeopardy that it has put us in. That whole notion of energy and power, in the technical sense, is totally connected to the energy and power that we talk about in the political sense, because there's no reason on Earth, other or anywhere else, why this natural resource, this energy that, that exists around us, and other resources like land and water and things like that, there's no reason at all why these shouldn't be, common resources that are used by us all in order to be able to build a better future. But what's happened through the economic system that has developed over the last couple of centuries is the notion that these things should be privatized, that they should be owned by individual interests, and so on and so forth. So when you talk about energy, I mean, most people don't even relate to energy as a natural resource, something that enables our work and our efforts. They think of it as a commodity that they go and buy. I mean, you buy it at the gas pump, right? But you buy it when you pay your electrical bill and whatnot. So there's a whole notion that we call a commodification of energy, and the commodification of power that's really, very central to the notion of the capitalist system, and ongoing currently, even now, trying to take nature itself and to commodify nature, like trees and living things, you name it. Just to sort of, I just wanted to say a couple words there about, the nature of this struggle. Really, it's very profound. It's really about exercising our people's power in order to be able to control those resources and whatnot that enable us to live and to survive, on the planet. So I think I want to stop there. There's lots of folks, on the line, but just to say that the fight with PG&E and the fight that we see, with our communities being burned down because of PG&E, power shut off because of PG&E, is really this contradiction between the notion of commodifying our energy and using it for personal profit and for accumulation of capital on the one hand, and the actual needs that we have to improve and solve some really profound questions of life. So it's one of those little cranks where we see these things coming together, very visually, very, people actually being murdered by these private utilities that want to control the thing that's so essential for us to be able to control in a much more democratic way. So I'm going to stop there. Hope I haven't gone too long. It was a little bit of a rant. But,
no, that's okay. Al, that was a good rant. We needed to, you had some gems in there, and for people that need to take notes, I hope they drop the paper, because you talked about commodifying and things like, that's why I shared the Water War podcast that also Piper, like all of the commodities. Now we're talking about energy and solar and where it's from, and think about this. Should that be a private thing? Come on. Like, and so I just, that was the conversation. We think about, like, someone's going to tell you, you can drink this much air today. What happens when that happens, y'all? You think so? This how much you get to drink today. You have to stay in this bubble for this amount of time, because I own the air capacity in this area. I know I just took you all the way there, Brandi, the air, but I don't think we thought water, huh?
I'm sorry I just had a quick thought. I had a thought about the energy and as far as like our own personal agency. But as far as the air thought though, like when you say that, like if you think of one thing, like if you think of like colonizing Mars and a corporate colonizing Mars, right? Like if you think of like Elon Musk trying to establish his own city, one of the major issues there exactly is the fact that now not only is water a commodity, but the very air you breathe will become like the biggest resource, like the most precious resource, right? Because you're on a colony on Mars, like even the air around you is no longer breathable, right? So having like if it's a scientific, strictly scientific colony, I would feel comfortable with that on a personal level, just that like, okay, like it's probably going to be train people and regulated and in a way where nobody's going to try to take over the oxygen, right? But in a profit-driven system, like it seems like that's too much leverage to have without any accountability, right? Because as you said, like being able to control the water is kind of scary enough, right? But at least they can't control when you go outside, like the air you're breathing, you know, like whether it's polluted or not, that's another issue. But like you can't control that. But the moment you can control that, that is a very scary thought, because I mean that's the air you breathe. So yeah, but anyways, sorry, that's kind of a tangent. But as far as the energy part, one thing that kind of brought to mind when you guys are talking about the bills and like looking at and the understanding of energy, I feel like that one issue is that like we're so used to in a sense the energy being out of our control or being out of our kind of realm, and so it almost does feel like you have no agency over that power. And that reminds me very much of like as I think Al was saying, the political power and feeling like there's no agency. And I think that's what Dr. King shows really greatly, is that you can take that agency, you know, and what can be done when that power is in hands that aren't profit driven, you know, but are human driven, I guess, or human focused, human centric.
So what if you bring energy and air into this conversation right now? Excuse me, I'm just entering. My name is Rachel. I'm here at the Eastern Gate of Turtle Island in Woodstock. She, her, we, us. I'm thinking a lot today about energy and air, and how many of us have literally just been taken into a space where fear, which is very much exacerbated in isolation, is now being offered to us. The antidote to that fear is isolation. So when we think about air right now, and there's a lot of people pushing against the idea of masking their existence, and a lot of people who are happy to do that to save themselves and their neighborhood, how do we look at this place where we are recognizing that our air is right now being commodified in our own minds? We are actually being manipulated by fear, and air is absolutely part of this conversation right now. So I don't really want to remove us as I listen to you move into this. We're already there, Brandi.
Thank you so much. Rachel, can I actually say Colin Miller put in the chat to everybody? And Colin Miller, you better jump on this call, because you know this is really your baby. I love all the humans on. First of all, I love everybody here that I haven't seen physically in hella long. I just need to say that. I'm like looking through the thing. I didn't know there was other page. I was like, wait, scroll the thing. There's other humans. Okay, because I'm just like, Wanda, everybody on the, listen, this is Power the Call. If we get like power, whoa. Okay, I just have to say that because Colin put in the chat, and you know, he is that person who's always chatting, sending, or connecting mycelium. You know, the air is already on, right? You kind of gave that, Colin, but I want to, you know, give you the ability to speak to it. And put some more inferences. You have some references folks can go to at all as well.
Much love and respect, Sister Brandi and Uncle Al and everyone on the call, all my family and relatives, comrades. Thank you for that, Brandi, for speaking to that. I think it's really important to, you know, bring it back to the commodification of the sacred and how wrong and how perverse that is. And it is the very air that is being commodified through carbon offset markets that allows corporations like Chevron to keep polluting Black and brown communities in Richmond, so that refineries can purchase the right to pollute more, and then that creates pressures of displacement, removing indigenous peoples from their homelands in places like Acre in the Amazon in Brazil. And so I think it's really important to hold that angle of things as well. That's all just another, trickery of capitalism. And, Al actually wrote a book on that, on what the heck is a REC, renewable energy credit. And a lot of times, when entities like, the University of California says that they're going carbon free by a certain amount of time, they're purchasing these carbon credits, and it's not actually real renewable energy. And it's important for us to be mindful of that. If we can't see it, then it's not real, because they're doing something shady with numbers behind the scenes, that's killing people elsewhere and removing people from their lands, because the process of colonization is happening basically on our dime through that process of carbon credits and carbon offset markets. So just sharing a little bit about that. Much appreciation.
Hey, Colin, when you say that, you say, it's happening on our dime and on our back. And I think about the resources and the natural resources where energy comes from. And I think about my time in Zambia, in Africa, and one of the natural resources of copper, because I worked in the copper belt there. And I think about these resources, like when we get clean energy, but maybe somebody else's whole village and lifestyle is shifted and changed and moved, but we have clean energy, right? Like we're doing this thing. When you said that, I thought about the implications of, because we hear like, oh, well, I went solar, I'm doing good. Like this, my PG&E bill is cheaper. There's this very detachment of, again, this connection to your clean energy. Is kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have to all the way down to the source of extraction of all these minerals, including for solar energy, like you're saying, or for batteries. And I think that's a really challenging thing, as you're talking about, copper in Zambia, or lithium ion, lithium for making lithium ion batteries, which comes from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We know what's going on there, extractive capitalism and ongoing colonization. Some friends of ours, the Center for Interdisciplinary Environmental Justice, is hosting a conversation with indigenous leaders from Bolivia and Peru, women who are fighting the sale of their sacred waters, of their sacred lakes, for the mining of lithium, for the production of batteries, for green capitalism. And of course, we could make an argument that it's better to have 100% renewable energy and battery storage than fossil fuel power. But that's also coming at the expense of people elsewhere, of indigenous people in the global South. So how do we transform that? And that's a really important fight that we need to be connected to if we're really going to be about it, in solidarity with our family around the world, which I think Dr. King spoke very eloquently to in opposing the war in Vietnam and U.S. imperialism everywhere. So.
Ian, we bring them back to the room. I just want to bring the team. I know folks are like ready to bring some stuff, but I just want to center this conversation in the King. It was a trained skill to be a nonviolent communicator. I just want to acknowledge that. And there's work to be done right now on the planet from all of us who may be set in the middle to shift into this training of communication. I think I see a number. Somebody was reaching out and wanted to say some. Yeah.
Yes. Peace, relative. This is Zion. Yeah, so good to, like, just this first 20 minutes that I've been here has totally blown me away. And I'm so, like, yeah, I'm just so grateful this conversation is happening right now. I'm not an expert in this realm of solar, so I don't want to take up too much space, but I have like kind of a somewhat of a philosophical and like a practical question for the group, which is, I saw Michael Moore's movie Planet of the Humans, and it kind of like blew me away and like made me realize some of the like ways that I was duped into believing the green economy, essentially, in the ways it was connected to big oil and neoliberalism and all that. But like, I also heard from some people that like there were some flaws, like some technical flaws and some things like that the movie didn't, that there were some flaws in the actual storytelling and like details of some of the information. So I'm curious, like, if this group has any insights on that. Because after I watched it, to be honest, like my thought was just like, I mean, when I was in college, I was obsessed with Nikola Tesla, and I was just like researching Nikola Tesla's discovery of free energy and like the history of it being repressed and all of this stuff. And I thought I was kind of a kook, honestly. I thought I was crazy when I was in college, but now I've met more and more people who really validate the science of it. And there's actually, sort of wildly enough, someone who actually just moved into the farm that I live at in the Sierra foothills, who's been a student of Nikola Tesla and is really committed to bringing about like the demonstration of free energy again. And so I just want to offer that as a thread I want to drop into the conversation, and start to just inquire about its feasibility on like a deeper level of sovereignty and total non-extraction from the earth. So I just offer that as a conversation at some point. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zion. Zion, that was great. The movie was Planet of the Humans, and that feels like we should be having more conversations, which we do have in our People Power Solar Cooperative. We're having like these monthly conversations that I think we should go deeper in that. And I just give thanks because I too was thinking about the Tesla folks. You know, you say that name real quick. Let's say Tesla like that. You know, can we say, you work at Tesla? You know, that's in the community. But like Zion said, in a whole nother framework, you're not connecting it at all, right? We're just thinking like, oh, you just got a job out of Tesla. Am I right? Like, is this not the same connect? Is there not a connection? But Al put in the chat, and I think it's very relevant, especially as we listen to this time. He said, where the women at in conversation here? And I also don't want to force conversation. So I want to open it up. And if anybody has comment around what Zion said, I also want to open up for folks to direct communicate with each other. This is not some like we own the platform, you can't talk. I think you can like check in with each other, because that's the real energy that needs to happen, so we can all understand these concepts and some of the work like Alice put together in his, like we have a lot of answers to things. It's time to activate is what I want to also talk about when we think about reclaiming and think about the king. He wasn't just talk. He could write a good speech, but he showed this and walking. He showed this and walking. I just want to say that.
Yeah, I also want to appreciate Zion's bringing in Tesla. That's definitely an ancestor that has brought in so much amazing things that we're enjoying today. And I think it's important. I just dropped in chat a comic that talks about how amazing Tesla was, and Tesla is no way near the Tesla we know, the brand, the company, the one that's commodifying so much of our non-human relatives and calling them resources, including starting out the coup in Bolivia. So Tesla, the man, is somebody who absolutely does not believe in commodification, and had a huge war with, or conflict and war with in our education system, learn about how amazing Thomas Edison is. And a lot of that, Thomas Edison was literally taking the credit from Tesla's innovation and do everything he can to oppress Tesla and not only steal his good innovation that can bring all the good to people, including non-commodity, like energy as a commons for people, so that people can all enjoy and manage together Edison tried to take it and commodify it. So look at our incandescent light bulbs. Why do we have to replace it so frequently? Edison designed it in a way that you have to replace it frequently, so then you have to keep buying the new ones. Consumerism came about there. And so Tesla is, in many ways, in my opinion, I find it as a foundation for how technically we can make energy as a commons work. But as Al mentioned, the struggle is not a technological solution. The struggle is really in how do we fight against economic and political power, and very powerful economic and political interests that is holding us back from this. I would love to hear more from Al about what exactly our current system looks like. I'm happy to share this image from Reclaim Our Power to talk about our current system, if that helps, Al. Just share my screen, whatever helps with just.
No, I mean, I don't want to talk too much here. I'd like to hear from other folks, but I think basically what you're referring to, I mean, there's two things. One is that, you know, we have a very authoritarian type of energy system, meaning it's not democratized. We don't make the decisions really about the energy that we need, the form it takes, and stuff like that. So, you know, and people understand this. They understand that there's corporate power that's basically, you know, using energy just as a form of enriching its own wealth and power, you know, at our expense. But the other thing that we don't think about too much is that with the advent of renewable energy, we have the ability to create a whole different kind of energy system. By that, I mean a difference between what we call a centralized energy model and a decentralized energy model, where the centralized energy model is one in which very few interests with much capital build very big power plants, usually very far from where we need energy. And then they use that energy, they commodify it, and they make us pay for it, and they get wealthy, right? And then ruin our lives and our planet and everything on the basis. But with renewable energy, the sun shines on you everywhere, the wind blows, you know, we can be conscious about how we use or waste energy and so on and so forth. It's distributed. It's distributed across our energy. It's distributed across our communities and across the globe. So we can build a model of energy use and generation that fits our own local needs, and that's called a decentralized energy model, where we own and control and make the decisions about the energy that we need. So this is the main. I just want to say this is the main fight that's going on around energy in the world. Really, I mean, it doesn't appear like it's that way, but that's really what's at stake here. Is there is no reason technically or technologically why we need a big centralized energy model that dominates our life, uses us against ourselves, when we know enough technically due to Tesla and other folks that we can actually create an energy system that really meets our needs, because the energy is here and now and can be harnessed if we have the political power to make that happen. So, I mean, I don't want to say too much more about that. The current centralized energy system is very oppressive. What we need is to be able to have a liberatory energy system that frees us up, you know, talking about freedom, you know, not free in the individual sense, but free in the collective sense, to be able to determine our destinies through organizing and the taking of collective political power.
Esther, you got something to say, I know, because you all about the political power and organizing. Please shine some more light on this conversation.
Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody. And I'm so glad to hear all what I heard. Just what I want to bring it back to, it being January and, you know, MLK Day and birthday and all the love for what he fought for, and hearing, you know, people power and our ability, right? What I want to bring it back to is the last speech that is not highlighted, that King said, and that is around the actual what is due to the Negroes, right? To the Black folks. And that's the reparations. And that's in the fight that I am in currently and giving a lot of my energy to around, because it's not for us to, and it may feel a certain way me saying this, but it's not really a time just to include everyone in the reparation, but for us to actually unite and understand that, you know, once the how to say this, because the movement that I am in is ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, because it's not all Black folks, right, are not descendants of slavery here in America. And so though that is what King was fighting for, right? I know that it was a lot of Black and white talk, but again, the original is because really the ADOS is disappearing, right, period, from America. And so we need us to like go back to all the freedom fighters and all the messages that they were saying, what they actually were fighting for, right? Is for the Black person to be free. And once we receive those reparations, and it's not just money, right? Money is a huge, because the 40 acres and the mule that never was given to like my relatives that were hung, right? And for us to understand that when it comes down to that time when we say, well, who gets it? Once the Black person is free, everyone will be free, right? Yes. And I'm just saying that in a way that when we do talk about all of the ADOS freedom fighters that fought, for us to remember those original messages and join in the unity and solidarity, because it is time, right? It is time for us to actually see how Black people, how descendants of slavery can actually live without being contained, controlled, and constantly told that we're savages and that we can't do it on our own, right? Because we know most of these services, they say that is for communities of color, they say that is for Black folks, but it actually is for everyone. So I just wanted to say that for us to like go back and like listen to the last speech that King said, because he said everything that was given, millions and millions of acres of land that was given, right? It wasn't for Black folks. It wasn't for descendants of slavery. So go back to his last speech. He actually was marching to the Capitol. He actually was going to he did go to the Capitol. And what he said is that when we go to the Capitol, we're going to go get our check. And then they killed him. And we know that that is what happens to the ADOS freedom fighters. They get killed. Right. And it's hard for us to like distinguish, between who and what, and because somewhat it feels selfish, but damn, again, I'm going to repeat it. It is time. So thank you for listening. Bless everyone.
Wait a minute, is this our city council member, Esther? Okay, I ain't gonna go there.
It was county supervisor, but 2024. So yes, it is.
Yes. Thank you very much for East Oakland. I just have to want to ground it again in the King and give thanks for your feminine power on this conversation, because the reason we're at this situation now on the planet is rooted in this crazy racism. We can't not talk about it. We talk about so many of the implications of the design and where we got here. We can't just go, well, let's get clean energy, all get along and skip over that. And so I just want to give thanks, Esther, for just recentering us back into the reclamation conversation that the King was saying. The reason we really jumped on this call, because there are a lot of folks living in clean energy and live a lifestyle with, that is very comfortable, but there's some isms, racism, that when we talk about the people's power, that if we're not thinking about who directly we need to restore power to, then we're not really pushing it. We're not thinking about that, because where we got to this point was to fuel and run factories to create wealth for certain communities so that others would not. So we got to have that conversation. That's not part of reclamation. So as we think about these new tools, and it brings me back to what we're doing at the People Power Solar Cooperative. I know we just starting something. And what does it mean for us to own and operate our power together cooperatively, as Al talks about this uncommodifying piece of our natural resources, the sun. I just give thanks, Esther, for that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren. Brandi, is it all right if I jump in for a minute?
Go ahead.
And Esther, I want to say thank you so much for sharing what you said and allowing me to speak after you. As like a pale-faced person who comes from Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, like this is my invitation to the white-skinned people on this call to, like, when I think of power right now, I think like, how do we move the power that we were unfairly given or unfairly took, right? And the money that we have amassed and the power that we have amassed, and how are we turning that back to the communities that have been unfairly taken from? And so, yeah, that is the part of my journey that I'm in now. And I'm looking for other white people to do this work in, because yeah, Brandi, it's time for Black women to the front, Indigenous people to the front. And like you always say, when the Black women is free, Esther, you just said, then we'll all be free. And so, yeah, when I think power and MLK Day, I think like, what am I doing on a personal and a political and a familial level to make sure that reparations that were due yesterday are getting paid today and tomorrow, and that the children I have will be in a circle with everyone else, as opposed to in the center of some fake situation that racism created and colonization created. So thank you for having me here today. And y'all are amazing, just amazing.
Give thanks, Lauren. It got quiet all of a sudden. Lauren had a little shout out. She probably available too. She gave a shot. They gave a shout out.
I'm here, y'all. Message me, call me, let's Zoom, like white people, like let's get together, because this is not the work for our brown and Black and Indigenous people. Like the healing that we require is different than the healing that others require. Like as descendants of oppressors, this is, our journey looks different. And so we can be in solidarity, but we cannot be on the same journey exactly. So I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put my number in the chat, I'll put my email in the chat.
Well, thank you, Sherry. You need to say that. Sherry.
Yeah, I could say it. I just wanted to offer is what I put in the chat is, and you know, when I thought about what you said, I thought about my grandmother and other folks in my family, my mother included, who's 85. I have to offer that Black women have always been in the front of our community, our Black community, but have not always been recognized in terms of white supremacy. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that you know, we are at another crossroads. And so it's just being allowed the space, you know, which I think People Power is definitely trying to do in terms of looking at energy and who owns energy and who can get access to energy.
Thank you, Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
I got another question from a sister in Atlanta, and she said, you know, I got this and I want to come. She said, but how do people, if you don't own your building, how do you be a part of People Power Solar Cooperative, and what is this? And so there's still just this conversation. Again, for me, why I'm just so grateful all these folks are here, because that was the reason we have this conversation. I said, I think we're a little disconnected, and we have folks working in the energy field, but everybody use energy. So how can we all not have this conversation? So we all, like, your very existence is on it. And right now, and particularly with this whole internet, we don't own it. So because I often say to people, if you eat food, you need to farm. I don't care if they talk about that's the farmer. There was a time in life where the person who ate the food also put the seed in the soil, and maybe was even the community doctor, but he still had to go to the chicken coop to get his eggs. So there was a connection to it, huh? So we've gotten this disconnection, like those are the energy working folks. And my intention of sitting in this circle is to go, how do we quote unquote, not even level the playing field, but let's get let's plane this out, because we've even created words to codify. And, you know, as I was listening to Al, I'm grateful I've been in this work, Al, so I can hear it. But I think about some of the humans that I've even invited on the call and folks who are not in the energy sector, because when we talk about bringing all the humans on deck around this idea, what is that conversation? And it's not in panic. What is it? Because I get calls like my PG&E is out, and I said, Crystal, we need to create backup batteries. That's how we're gonna get. You know, we were talking about that years ago, and I think we did it, and it's like, here's what we're gonna do so that we can really show the importance of us owning that. And we were able to give power to communities when PG&E shut it down. But that's a little tiny thing. But part of the intention is, what does it look like when we get together to do something, and we have agency?
Yeah, I used to work in the solar industry. I know there's some people online who also used to do that. And in the solar industry, in the renewable energy industry, in fact, a lot of my friends from the past actually now works for the opposition of energy democracy right now for big companies like Duke Energy, PG&E, DTE, NextEra. And in that world, it's all about like, we're the expert, we're going to sell the cheapest solar energy possible in order to solve climate change. And the idea is always under the framework of have versus have not. So the idea of getting solar to all people, the quote unquote solar for all concept is always about how do you drive the cost down. So then the pie is big enough so the people on the bottom to get the crumbs and get the bigger crumbs and get it, but not really understanding the hierarchy and the pyramid scheme that is a lie. And so as I'm beginning to do this work and starting to understand this, I remember learning from resource generation, talking about the workshop around the what do you call that, the workshop where people just walk up forward and backwards about based on their privilege, I believe. So we walk forward one step if you
Poor People's Campaign.
No, it's a workshop. It's been done in many places, and it's the exercise.
Cross the line.
Yeah, it's not crossing. So it's basically walk forward one step. So the facilitators say statements like, if your ancestor came not by will, take a step back. If you grew up speaking your mother tongue, take a step forward. If your parents own a home, take a step forward. If you have people of color, or if you've been judged based on the color of your skin, take a step backwards. And at the end of the workshop, you can see the distribution of privilege that's beyond just what you can see in your skin. And what struck me the most from resource generation's analysis was that generally the analysis is taking it and looking at, look, the people in the front has it well and people in the back doesn't, and we need to share, and that's the end of the conclusion. But from what I learned from resource generation was, look, now take a look and see, who do you think can see the room the most? And really changing the whole game and really understanding the front is not necessarily good. And so then the people who are all the way in the front, all they can see is a freaking wall, but people are all the way back, they can see everything about what's going on. And from my experience working in the renewable energy industry, I realized that all these people have so much power and money to try to build this climate solution, but they don't understand the reality. And as long as they're using this have versus have not, how do we help and use charity to support the poor people who need free energy or cheaper energy with free solar? How do it will never get anywhere until you can actually build that line of solidarity, that people can start to work together, recognizing that we all have something to offer. Like the people in the back have so much to offer about wisdom, from indigenous wisdom to all the way to understanding the real impact of reality, to start redesigning the solution that works for everyone. And I just want to lift up that line of solidarity and Lauren's call out for how do we actually build that line of solidarity to work together. So as we disconnect the ownership of land from the ownership of power, how can we actually work together to put rooftops in the commons so that we can all own power, build a movement, and start to understand this complicated thing called the energy system, and start to do something to demand the policy to be changed so that we can actually not just survive, but prosper.
Thanks, Crystal. She was in this big world. We're like, wow. I want to open up if anybody has any more conversation or just any questions.
Yes, 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 Crystal. Yes, I cannot wait to hang out with you. Yes. Yes to every single incredible person that's spoken today. Feeling super psyched that I actually did pop in.
I'm so grateful you did. Yes. Give thanks.
I'm about to put a wood stove in a 30-foot camper in the middle of I'm in the eastern gate of Turtle Island. So it is cold here. And thinking a lot about energy and thinking a lot about support these processes, and like if in our lifetime we actually will ever come to a place where we can move the policy that it works for the humans and actually like just remove that word from our language, because the earth does not provide us a place to return to take whatever we need from it at our disposal. That's not actually the story. That's the human anthropomorphizing of how we accept, take, extract whatever we can from the earth, mother, each other, energy, all that. All those conversations are like if we can't check the intersections between all of that on a bigger level, then we're not going to make the shift we need to make. We can't even center brown women in circles of like progressive humans trying to make these changes happen, right? So my mind then says, when do we just step away from this system and live and create what it is that we're looking to see, and then allow that model to be shared at our discretion? Like, that's what I'm really looking to find out, because I am not seeing policy moving fast enough for my son to live in the world that's even an inkling of what I would like for him to know.
Give thanks, Rachel. Rachel is in Woodstock, and I would be remiss in calling in her ancestor and father, Richie Havens, who opened up Woodstock over 50 years ago. She is a child and a person whose ancestors are their wildest dreams. And so we stand on their shoulders. And I often just want to bring that back in the work that we do in the world, to really see this reality of collective or cooperative living lifestyles, creating the commons, that as we think about People Power Solar Cooperative, who needs power the most right now, as we think about organizing this, we need to make sure that communities, as we, in particular in California, think about rollouts and there were blackouts, and we have families with all kind of machinery that are needed for their health. Like, where are we putting these systems and freeing up energy for people to be able to just have basic necessities to live, right? Let's move out of the idea of the less PG&E bill, but I'm against solar, it's a cheaper bill. I'm like, it's so much deeper than that. We're just so deep. And how do we begin to have better conversation and our own individual relationship to energy? I'm going to call that back, because that was my intention of the conversation. I said, we're recalibrating ourselves right now on the planet. And it's like, where are we at? Where's my energy focused on? And so this is something, People Power Solar Cooperative, this isn't a new idea that came out of the pandemic. I just want to throw that out there. We've been talking and putting together and dreaming and conversating and meeting up on this. And we're wanting to bring other folks on board with this intention. This isn't a call out like we're trying to restructure the thing and it's really just a conversation to give folks energy around energy, and all of us being cooperative owners of it and shifting it for our next generations. I have to say this, you know, we have to understand that maybe some of the things that we're even seeing, we may not be in our lifetime, but we have to know that's why we're doing, you know, it's moving on forward. For those who don't have children, even if you work with children, they often exude that in you, right? This thing to like, even if I can't taste it, they gonna taste it.
Well,
Like
while
that,
you say that, because you say that, and I don't mean to break you off, but I'm going to say that because I'm going to break in because you brought my father into this story today. I'm going to turn on my camera. My father would have been 80 years old in 2 days or 3 days on Thursday, the day after the inauguration. The work that he did with his music was energy flow. And that's how he was able to, you know, power his family, power his own system. And it was an exchange between humans and himself and the energy in between. And he's walking now between worlds. It's very clear. I'm very clear on this. And as I move through preparing a birthday celebration for him, I'm listening to the songs that he wrote. As the world knows him for songs he covered, he wrote an incredible mass of music. And the songs that are coming out are speaking to what we are living now. They are speaking to what I am now embodying and what he prayed for. Of course, I'm working, and we're all working to just create the most beautiful things we'll never, ever even taste, smell, shade will never sit beneath. But in order to actually give our young people and our next generation and theirs the possibilities, we will have to model it. So how can we do both, be out in this world that we're in, that we cannot really escape, and also actually live and build those models in places such as the work that's happening with Designing Justice? We can't look and say we're going to look at like energy, or we're going to look at you know, community services, or we're going to look at how the police relate to the community without looking at the whole design. And so here we are back again to where Crystal just brought us. The people at the back of the privilege line are the ones with the widest scope and the most experiential knowledge of what happens with capitalist corporate, you know, growth industrial complex culture. So in these rooms that we continue to enter with people who continue to ask us, like, how do we make these shifts and where are we going to go with it and when are we going to make these changes? Once and again and forever, and in every single conversation I step in, someone, most often usually not me, says, center brown, Black, Indigenous women, let us run the show for a minute. And the thing that's almost nearly impossible to come to is that. Because we're in a situation where everyone is so unstable in this identity political world that people don't want to step back and allow us to just to set, like, give us the money, the power, the land, and a minute. When I reach out right now, I want time, I want trust. Trust me that when you place in my hands 25 acres, what will come from those 25 acres will support more than the community around it. And if you roll in there and ask me to give you benchmarks, I don't have time. I'm too busy feeding, raising, growing, honoring, praying. I don't have time to give you the benchmark of what I bring to the community.
Ooh, Rachel, she just came in and did something. I just give thanks for your, it's so good to see you, my dada.
You better call me.
It's so good to see you. And all the folks on this call, we are I love it. Trust Black women. We are talking about that and reclaiming our power with the king. We know his wife bringing Coretta into the room, and he had 5 children, 4 children or 5 children. The king did. But what does it mean for us to reclaim our power and really connect with each other, and particularly in California? I got a message. I think it was from Crystal. You know, that's my Crystal energy. It was like, woo, this is ground zero right here. It was earlier today. Talked about we don't have enough rain so far in the state of California. So it looks like there's going to be some blackouts coming now. Now, listen, we're used to this happening in the summer, right? Old rolling blackouts to help with the fires. But here now it is January 18th, and we're being told it's mid-January There should be thorough of mostly wet weather. PG&E is warning a possible fire prevention shutoff of 21,000 customers in the Southern Sierras and Central Coast. That's ground zero. That we're looking at Tuolumne County, Madera, Fresno. Wait a minute, there's some food there, Fresno, you know, Santa Barbara, Larry, Tuolumne. Oh, me, Calaveras. This is something that they're saying this could happen. 21,000 customers as a way to prevent fires. We know that our native family, my native family coming from Blackfoot, Indiana, and my great-great-great-grandfather, call them into the space. If we also tend the land the right way, I just want to say that. And particularly, we understand the ecology of California being a fire ecology. And that if we would tend the land like the native folks whose land we're on, then possibly we wouldn't be dealing with some of these fire designs, correct? So when we think about these shutoffs and just even how it's being designed, it doesn't allow for all of the space of all of our brilliance to come into the space in the room. Our indigenous tend the land like the stewards who stewarded and not just farm it. See, I got that game a few years back. I sat at the feet of the Lakota sisters in Pine Ridge, and she said, Mama Brandi, I said, I'm a farm her. I just loved it, cute little word. Farm her, you know, H-E-R. And she said, no, honey, you bigger than that. You ain't farming nothing. You didn't come here to separate and make lines. She said, you a steward, honey. That's what you do. Thank you, my dear, because I'm never, ever, ever too old to learn every day something. She knew my heart, and she said, let me correct those words that you got, because even the words that we have been used to create were designed to separate. You know this, especially folks who speak another language. You know this English language is a joker, Is some of the words that we can't even do it. Like, we got to use another word because it's not in the English dictionary. So as we think about this right now and reclaiming our power, I just want to give thanks for all the folks who jumped on this call. Like, maybe you went out today and maybe you still made it out. I know Brother Rashid was at the African American demonstration site, which I invite so many folks to know about, in Fresno, in California, you know, in an area where, you know, food, a lot of folks were thinking about power and clean energy. We look in the urban area, and I want to push us to think about the connection of the rural and the urban and the people in those lands, and particularly the melanated people in those lands, that we isolate and we put our energy only in one area. I want us to think about what does it look like to bring us together, because that's the only way we're going to do it. We say these little proverbs, right? We go fast alone, far together, think of all this stuff, but we still are separate, talking about this shift in consciousness. So I really want to invite us, as we reclaim our energy, to think about how we're doing that, how we're not getting tricked into this urban or just rural, but it's really the mycelium, which is what I grounded, that we're being asked to do some radical rest right now on the planet. That's what I'm that's been my work. Okay. And I shared with you the acronym. I'll share one more time, because it was like, I'm gonna share this out with people because this is pretty intense. But the acronym for REST is remembering eternal spiritual ties. We all have them. That's what it is right now. And I'm going to say, because spiritual people, thinking about your connection, right? It equals connection. Yeah, so it's pretty, I really am grateful that there's a lot of folks even thinking about this right now today on your day, quote unquote, off, right? And wanting to have a conversation about reclaiming our power cooperatively, creating commons, and particularly where people have been most traumatized with energy. Not just an idea that we give in sport and provide jobs to people in the community. Our people who are dying, who have died, who are incarcerated as we shut down jails right now and build the other places, embedding them with the commons of energy, right? Like, we just gonna build the new building, the whole prototype needs to be embedded with this design of the folks who own the energy of the building. This is the new thing. As we think about the planet shifting, stuff is dying, y'all. The other things are time to emerge. As grief stricken as we all are, there's something else coming from this fire.
Oh, I have one more thing to share. I don't want to take up too much time, but I do want to share this because you just called it. And we're talking about air and fire and breath and energy. And I just want to remind all of us that our lungs are the some of the most activated processors of grief. And as the entire globe is facing, a respiratory illness rooted in our lungs, it's very important to process as much grief right now as we may be holding, as much breath work as we can, strengthening of our lungs. And in doing that, it's strengthening of our heart and releasing the grief that we're holding, because that grief, the collective sigh of relief that is so many are waiting for with this like removal of the T word, it's going to happen. There will be a massive collective sigh of relief. And if we can connect to those retinues of elders, ancestors that we have, and the earth connections, we may be able to help, as the light workers that I can feel so many here are, to process some of that grief and flow it out, and just breathe, flow, trust when there's tears there, that it's important to release them. Because this is a collective attack on our lungs right now. And it's the earth reminding us that when you pow through and extract her lungs, it will affect ours. So this heart space that so many of us are hurting, and so many of our youth have been mourning their futures. So to recognize that collective grief right now is directly related to a global pandemic that is attacking our lungs. So cry, scream, wail, breathe, and let that grief out of your system, and hold whoever you know around you that needs to release some, if you can.
Give thanks. I just heard that we should make sure you drop your jaw, open up your mouth, because I'm sure all of us at some point in this conversation, like right there, all the trauma, because your body remember it. Know that. And the goal here is to be nonviolent with ourselves and the community. There's the part that I also stand on the king, and a lot of my elders who are in the movement are no longer here, who were pushed to work in a way that they're no longer here. And I often tell people, I said, man, I love Fannie Lou. I love all these folks. I said, but I don't want to leave the planet too early. I got some children and stuff. I need to stay around. What does that look like? What does it look like to be nonviolent with myself, to be better in my community? And I just want to, acknowledge that, particularly for the melanated and the women on the call, who the roles that we play often, because it's a role that puts us in that, caretaker of everything but ourselves, that doesn't even allow us to really be in community. And so I just want to invite us, when we think about being nonviolent in community and organizing, that it really starts with you. That's what I'm being invited in right now. That we can go all the circles and all the stuff and sign up, but you want to come and vibrate at a certain energy tone when you come to the circles, all I'm saying. So I appreciate and love when we are taking care of self, so that when we come together, then we're really some collective energy, owning our power, understanding what it is, not replenishing the same system that's ill, because we can slip back into that quote unquote efficiency very quickly. Right? Be efficient. All of those designs that moved us away from being cooperative and put us in commodities, even as we are designing this new system. And so I want to thank everybody. We have like 6 minutes left. And if anyone had like a burning, ooh, I need to say this, I need to speak this, I want to really open up that space. And then also I just want to, give time for Al. You have a book, and Al is like, I'm reading my book and all this stuff, but I want to invite you to just like maybe tell folks where to get it. Maybe somebody already did that. As we really invite this, I'm going to say, some people are doing DEI work, right? And here's what I say: you don't need no DEI work if you just include everybody in the damn beginning, okay? Just include everybody, let everybody be a part. You ain't got to work about equity and inclusion. So like, how do we all just get apart and be with each other instead of having these friends over here? If everybody eat, everybody need to be talking about the garden together. Like, everybody do this. We all need to be doing this together. This can't be no them and us on this. And so I just wanted to leave with, come on now, the DEI work, because we didn't got reduced to acronyms. At the end of the day, I'm doing this work to do this. If everybody's included in the conversation and we move out of the way to say that this, again, are all of the institutions that we've been in, some of us from the penitentiary to the academy, right, to the university, they're all institutions. I just want to point that out. They all have words and formats and ways that they train you to think and be, and most of them were not indigenous. So to some degree, we all have been institutionalized, even with our efficiencies that we've been created. And so as we think about the real decolonizing, I often have been saying, it ain't my work to decolonize. It's my work to re-indigenize myself, to get closer to that where I'm from. It's not, that's my work. It's the work of the other folks that do that other work. I got to get closer. I'm from something. I need to get closer to that.
I'd love to chime in. Thank you, Brandi, for facilitating this beautiful gathering. This is so wonderful and really restorative. I've been doing something that really caught my attention was your underlining that highlighting and saving of dollars just isn't going to work, because that is very much from that same colonized mindset. And I've been doing a lot of recent research into utility markets outside of California. And here in Oakland and Ohlone Land, we're under the PG&E territory, but in Texas, where I've been doing a lot of my research, they have a right to choose. So residents can choose whatever utility company they want to go to. And Texas also has 3 large grids that service the state. And Texas has the lowest electricity rates, or among the lowest electricity rates in the country. They are the #1 natural and crude oil, natural gas and crude oil producers in the country. And they're also the highest producer of wind generated energy, and that's about 30% of the United States wind generated energy. And I think it's kind of this really insidious example of how there can be an entity that is marketed as green, and they're producing the green energy, but they're still so dirty and extractive in the ways that they continue to push forward the status quo. And I think, to go back to what Rachel was saying, and what has stuck with me, is this idea that we can actively push for a homecoming in more ways than one, and thinking through how best to service one another through connectedness with the land, with each other, with the air, with the water, with all these living, breathing, and non-moving things that have brought us here today. And I saw that someone had noted Marcus Books in the chat, and I want to give a shout out to Braiding Sweetgrass, which I just picked up from Marcus Books a couple of months ago. And for anyone who wants to dive further into rest, this could be the book that is a tool for that. There's this beautiful anecdote about giving thanks, and Brandi, I love that you always emphasize that, because the author, who is an Indigenous woman, often brings up the anecdote that she waits for the day when the earth and the land can give thanks right back to us. So yeah, thank you for listening and for sharing.
Thank you so much. Marcus Bookstore, you just threw a plug out. You said so much, and just thank you for the global aspect, which I just also want to invite all of us to remember that this conversation is on this call, but energy, this global idea of it. and moving out of this, like, we're just right here in this tunnel. I really just value the idea of like, yeah, I'm here, but I'm researching Texas, and just our ability to be able to move out of, again, this mono design versus this, deeper poly, this we're here, we're everywhere, and connected. It's just so very essential for us. It's 1:30, and I want to say Marcus Bookstore. That was the last thing. You have to go, and the story behind Marcus Bookstore is very dear to my heart. It's first starting in San Francisco, and then a store in Oakland, one of the oldest Black bookstores, and very close ties. I had the opportunity to teach the great-great-granddaughter of the owner of the Marcus Bookstore for the last 5 years at Meadows Livingstone School in San Francisco. And she told a story her grandmother told, her great-grandmother who opened the store. She said, Maya Angelou first came to Marcus Bookstore and got one of her first books at this store, and and was told that she couldn't read, right? Like she was like, because she was a woman, right? And she came to this Marcus Bookstore and got a book, Maya, right? Who often says, and so when I think about this bookstore and the activation in our community, and there's still a Marcus Books in Oakland, the one in San Francisco no longer reigns. But when we talk about creating places to reactivate, to reimagine, the places have existed. How do we reactivate the places we needed in community to produce the Maya Angelou's, the bookstores, when we think about reimagining justice in the built environment? I ain't gonna forget to bring that in here, because the solar and the energy and the power got to lie on some kind of building, some kind of commons, some space, some built structure, as we think about cooperativizing and creating it, some land, some place. It's not just out there, even though we on the internet out there. But it's 1:30. We want to keep talking. I want to invite folks to Marcus. Sweetgrass, yes, that's one of them books you read a few times. Keep it little tabs on the side because you can go back in and out of it. Y'all know that. It's one of those. Especially if you want to stay rooted in resilience. It's one of those books. Got like your bookshelf for the everydays. Keep a tab. I say do that. And Al, I'm wondering if you could just share your book. I know you said no, and tell us a little bit and give thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Brandi. Thanks for pulling all this together, and to everybody. I can't say it's my book. It's I edited a book along with Denise Fairchild from, oh my gosh, Emerald Cities Collaboratives across the country. But it's a book. It's called Energy Democracy. The subtitle is Advancing Equity Through Clean Energy Solutions. And it's really a book that tells the story of about a dozen initiatives across the country in different communities, including cooperatives like Power Solar Cooperative, where people are getting together in their own communities, mostly frontline communities, getting together to take over control and ownership of energy resources, and engaging in that fight against the power structure to do that. So it's called Energy Democracy, Advancing Equity in Clean Energy Solutions. And I don't have the link, but I mean, if you Google it, that's where it is. I'll just write down the name of the book. Thank you much.
Mm-hmm. Well, family, I want to sign off and give thanks for folks being here. I think Colin or someone put the book in the chat. If I didn't get back to folks in chat, just know I'm not good at all that, okay? And don't be like, I was trying to hit you in the chat. Just email. I know that I'll put the email in the chat. I will do that. At least put your email in the chat, Brandi. But just know that if you were saying something in it, I am so hard at the over multitasking, the chat, the thing, all of that stuff. So it wasn't that I wasn't trying to communicate. I invite more conversations. I see that we got one that's going to be starting with Zion. We have a wonderful playground that we play on with Power Solar Cooperative, and just inviting folks to continue to join us, because this isn't something we just thought about. This wasn't no post-pandemic thing. What I said, as my children said, Mom, the stuff you're doing on the planet is trending. That's what my daughters say. They 13 20 and 20. You're trending, mother, right? You know, but before this was like, so, you know, she ain't here talking about this stuff. So whatever that means, I'm down. Okay, I'm down to trend on this if that's what it looked like. You know, so I'm saying join us in the playground. It doesn't have to be, oh, I did my reclamation conversation on the King's birthday. This time, this year in 2021, you are being called to renew and redo and rest, reconnect, right? Remember that we are all connected. We got ties. I don't care where you at. We connected. Okay, put the email, Brandi, she talking. I know, Crystal, if you have any last words, but you have some good music playing on the beginning and wasn't enough people here to hear it. So I would ask for you to outro with that because that music was on point.
We'll do. Well, while you're typing, I'll just let everyone know that I just dropped in chat. I have everyone's email address and I will summarize this chat link with lots of resources being shared in a much more easier to read format. And for those who drop their emails in the chat, I will also share your email out to the whole list. So you should all get it, hopefully within the next 24 hours. And we can keep this conversation going. This is so
Yes.
full. I feel so great. Thank you so much. I feel like I wanted to cry.
It's okay. Rachel said we got to do that. Cry,
That's
scream,
right.
let it all out, and give thanks for the conversation. Again, we're on the playground with our people, Power Solar Cooperative. I think you can jump in. You may have to be a member of something, but keep checking in. Let's keep this conversation. You'll hear some more. We can't stop talking, but more than conversate, let's activate. Lauren called out all of my white fellow ancestors on some stuff. This was like a real rich conversation we didn't even pay no money for. I'm just saying people be paying money for stuff like that, right? Especially right now. It's like all the people. So like that's kind of fresh. We just like organically got on the call, stuff is happening. So let's do that. Let's take that same momentum and roll with it for the rest of this year. Why not? Right? Give thanks. Crystal, I'm gonna let you be like DJ Crystal too. Ashe family.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wanna be 5'5" with brown eyes, big breasts, small waist, and nice thighs. Cause I only see myself through your eyes. So I don't eat, but I'm fed with more lies. So I try and I cry and I purge and I vomit. The urge to be honest with the courage to just stop it. Society's ideal, so I feel I need a shield. Skipped another meal so I can keep my appeal, but my skin starts to peel. I can no longer feel what it means to be real, so I fall on these heels. Cause who cares about the frame that holds my diploma? Or the train of my thoughts that molds my persona? Or the way I've been brought up to be as a grown-up? But it's the body's frame trained by the wave society's boner. And I have to be 5'10" and in trend, and only feel good about the clothes that I'm in. Experience defined by the beds I've climbed in, shadowed by a mask that I'm forced to hide in. Of course I lie then, thinking each night I need to lie beside men, drinking each time my pride inside is rising, trying to find me, but I've lost what I've been. Who'd have thought that it's me that I fought each time, and all at the cost of what I become. When I look into the mirror, I feel numb. Staring back at me are supersized thighs, emptied hauled eyes, heart full of cries, brain full with lies, bottom into lies. So I nip and I tuck, I snip and I pluck, lips covered in muck-ups controlled by these cuffs. Can't stick to my gut, I'm fixed and I'm stuck. I'm tricked by this bluff till I'm sick and throw up. This shit is corrupt, I'm forced to grow up. Can't fit in this stuff, this change is abrupt. Sick thin and up, thick with sick up, such a sharp as a rub off this makeup that's rough. Society's planted silicone, so we end up being sickened clones, stuck in the cyclic flow of afflicted bones. So don't let your sister know that she's worth more than lipsticks and combs, or that her blisters will show every time she vomits at home. When your parents aren't home and she's all alone, only seeing what these magazines and TVs have shown. See, I wanna be a cover girl, so I cover the real girl. But if you peel off these pearls, under's a concealed world of a girl with hopes and dreams, brighter than things that gleam, who knows that she's a queen, knows what her life means.
Ashe. All right, I'm gonna tell you this song.
Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Isang bagsak. Yo, fuck a story arc if it don't involve no matriarch. Some mothers work from the ground up, they craft in air like ATR with the butterfly sleeves. Naka-Philippine na pag nagsalita mga banat ay bala. Wag magtaka kung ako ay makatabulok na sistema. Kurakot sa pera bagsak, but we put in our heart into darkness. They put in these pigs in the office. Oh, you thinking you schooling, but you hella lost cause you best see the boss while atop this. But look at my ate, she moving so cold. Can't hold a candle to her when she glow. Flick at the wrist.
Crystal, we can't hear nothing, but we just see the video. Now I can hear it. Yeah.
Runs red, you'll be dead in a minute like Nevis Fernandez. Have you beheaded? Fuck with my tribe, quickly regret it. Abani ko sa kamay, at isang mikropono sabay. At ang tapang ko, gaya ng inay. At halimaw nang sumasabay. Mga baran nyo lahat sablay. Mga rappers na puro bangkay. Tinamaan ko lahat patay. Kaya walang mag-iingay. I got that Filipino phenotype. Kayo magi-mestizo white. But give me that moreno like. That Rufio Aquino type. My lolas, they be speaking like. Those Bali songs and bolo knife. I read the ether, need no hype. Two tongues are sharper with the mic. I need no in my history like. From a land readers weaving tight. They thieve until one piece of might. Just turn to see no light. Hacienda like Aquino right. Rodrigo vigilante type. They kill my titles left and right. When smoke and mirrors fill the night.
So let it be known, if you don't already, Pinayas have always been part and parcel, if not imperative and critical to the struggle. Filipinas are no strangers to wielding our own power. Of all the privileges that exist in this world, none of which you may be a benefactor of, there is at least one you bear, and that is the privilege of having been born a Filipina. Your DNA contains building blocks made from the mud of over 500 years of resistance and survival, and when you are ready, sis, we'll be right here, right here, right here.
Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Isang bagsak.
That's a wrap, y'all.
Thanks. I had to stay to the end of that. I've got that on my playlist now. It's on the popping. I love it. And I got a new song on my playlist. Conversation and a new song on my playlist.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Much
Happy
love.
MLK Day. Power to the people.
We're gonna be out at Soul doing some work.
Yay! Soak up the sun.
Planting the seeds, trimming the trees, getting it ready. Much love.
Bye.
Bye-bye.